Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I've gotten questions recently regarding the baits that I like to use during the fall time. And I've mentioned in previous videos that I can't just give you a specific bait that I use all fall because it's all about matching the specific hatch that I'm trying to target. So the bass feed on different forage species during the fall. The earlier video I did was regarding shad. I'm going to do one today regarding crayfish, because crayfish are one of the prime feeding opportunities for bass during the fall months, especially the early part of the fall, before your water temps really start to drop down into the low 50s when the crayfish start to go dormant. But when there's a lot of that activity, they are a primary forage, and you got to keep in mind, and they're jumping behind me, you got to keep in mind that the crayfish are a primary forage because they're hanging out around hard targets. And during the fall period of the year, that's where bass are going to be found. The bass are going to be keying in on areas that have rock, which we all know crayfish love. They're going to be keying in on areas that have a lot of standing timber and stumps, which are hard targets. And what a lot of people don't realize is crayfish will live in those laydowns, live in those stumps. They'll hibernate in those stumps during the winter months. And not only that, they'll eat all of the different matter that's starting to grow on those stumps. So they are definitely very much a prime target for bass during the fall. So I've got a bunch of baits here that I find to mimic crayfish phenomenally well and produce extremely well during the fall months. So we're going to start with these. And I want to remind you all that you can get these off of Tackle Warehouse using my affiliate link in the video description. Any support is much appreciated. And let's go over these baits. So the first one I've got here is a jig. A jig in the fall is a phenomenal bait to use. This is a Dirty Jigs Luke Clawson compact pitching jig with the Berkeley Crash Craw on the back. A great combination. This color is a wonderful one. It's the Alabama Craw color. I really like green pumpkin with some orange mixed in. A lot of the crayfish, especially up here in the North Country, have that dark green shell with a little bit of some orange underbellies. And this Alabama Craw Luke Clawson compact pitching jig is a great match for that. This is my favorite all-around jig. It's a not a finesse jig, but it's a smaller profile jig, and it's still got the big hook in it. It still catches a pile of fish. Like, this is my go-to jig pretty much year-round. Next up, we're going to switch over to just a plastic. This is the Zoom Speed Craw. Again, this is the green pumpkin with the orange craw. One of my favorite colors, especially on like the Mississippi River out here on the Wisconsin River. Again, I'm kind of sticking with that green and orange color because it mimics a lot of the crayfish around here. The thing with the Zoom Speed Craw is it's a very compact, small bait that does a very good job at creating a lot of water disturbance, but still having the same movement profile of a crayfish. I'll fish this on anything from a straight Texas rig to potentially as a jig trailer. But if I'm looking to just mimic a small crayfish, I'll Texas rig it and I'll flip this into laydowns, flip it around stumps, and drag it on some rocks. So next up, another plastic I've got here. This is the Berkeley Creature Hog, Max Scent Creature Hog. One of my absolute favorites. I'll throw this in any form of the green pumpkin colors. This is green pumpkin party, I believe is what it's called. One of my favorites. It's got a little purple, little green imitation in it. The thing that I love about the Creature Hog is its movement in the water. You don't have the kicking motion of the Zoom Speed Craw, but you've got the gliding motion of a crayfish. You know, when a crayfish moves, it kind of gives a couple of tail flicks and then darts through the water. That's what this bait looks like. You know, your creature style baits, your beaver style baits, in my opinion, are the best imitator of crayfish movement, and therefore it makes them a very good bait to use to imitate crayfish. And the Creature Hog is my go-to flipping bait for any time I'm picking up a beaver style bait. But it's a great bait for putting down into those log jams and around the stumps and bringing through some big boulder rocks and stuff like that where the fish are going to be hanging out during the fall period. Next up, this is one of my favorite crayfish imitating crankbaits, especially in cold water. This is the Duo Realis M65 crank. They have a couple of different sizes. This is the 11A size, I believe, and it's in their pumpkin craw. You can see it's a green pumpkin with some green, orange spots on it. Just a great crawfish imitating crankbait. It has very erratic moves, similar to like a wigglewort. There's been a lot of high profile tournaments won on this bait. Not always referenced that this is the bait that's being used, but it's a very popular amongst the pros, and it has had some phenomenal finishes. They've got some other very good craw imitation colors as well, but it has more to do with the movement. This bait really deflects well and scoots well on the bottom. It's got a very erratic motion to it, and therefore it generates a lot of strikes. I've had some really good finishes on this in tournaments as well, and I would highly recommend it. It's the Duo Realis M65. It's a great crayfish imitation bait. Last up is a wobblehead. So the Dirty Jigs wobblehead again. I've got here just the Boss Scrub, the Berkeley Boss Scrub on the back. I really like throwing the Boss Scrub in the watermelon red color. It just seems like that little bit of red still is a good job at imitating your crayfish. But here, this is all about just slow movement. If I've got an area of rock in the fall period where I know there's going to be fish, but they're not in a super active mode, but I'm looking at trying to keep a bait in the strike zone for a long period of time, the wobblehead is a great way to do that. Slow drags, those fish are just sitting down in the rocks. It's a very weedless bait, and you can just slow bring this through an area, or if you're looking to cover water, you can fish it like a crankbait, cover a lot of water, and it generates a lot of strikes during the fall period. It's one of my favorite times to throw a wobblehead. And it works on rivers, it works on lakes, it works everywhere. Wobblehead is a great bait in terms of generating bites, and it's one of the best baits to imitate a crayfish and the crayfish movement. So guys, these are the 5 baits I'll have tied on all fall long. I'll catch a pile of fish out here this fall on these baits. So I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned. We'll have another video coming out tomorrow.